The research vessel Horizon's Truth moved slowly through the debris field. Dr. Jawan stood at the observation window, watching chunks of alien metal drift past like dead leaves in autumn. This graveyard had orbited Earth's moon for 500 years. Most people forgot it was even there. G1 had never forgotten. Her family kept the memory alive. Her great-great-grandmother had fought in the war. The old woman's medals still hung in Jiwan's apartment, behind glass that she cleaned every week. "We're approaching the target zone," Minho said from the control station. Her younger brother looked tired. They had been searching for 3 weeks, scanning thousands of wrecked ships. Most were just empty hulls, picked clean by salvage crews centuries ago. "Any signs of intact systems?" Jiwan asked. "Maybe there's a large vessel ahead. The scans show unusual power signatures. Could be residual charge in the batteries." Jiwan felt her pulse quicken. Batteries that still held charge after 5 centuries meant sealed compartments. Sealed compartments meant preserved data. Data meant answers. Hannah rushed over from her station, her eyes bright with excitement. "Doctor, I'm reading atmosphere containment. There's a whole section that never decompressed." "That's impossible," Minho said. "Nothing stays sealed that long." "The Vorath built things to last," Commander Taiyang said, walking onto the bridge. The old veteran moved with a slight limp, a reminder of his own service. "Their engineering was impressive. Just not impressive enough." Jiwan studied the massive wreck on the screen. It was bigger than their research vessel, even broken and dark. The hull showed blast marks and strange warping, as if reality itself had twisted the metal. Human weapons did that. They didn't just destroy matter. They changed it. "That's a flagship," Taiyang said quietly. "Look at the command spire. I've seen pictures in the war museums. Can we dock with it?" Jiwan asked. "I'll bring us alongside," Minho replied. "But we'll need to cut our way in. The airlocks are fused shut." 2 hours later, Jiwan floated through the cut opening in her pressure suit. Her helmet light pierced the darkness inside the Vorath ship. Everything was still, frozen. The corridor walls were covered in symbols she recognized from xenolinguistics textbooks. Vorath script. Warning signs, maybe. Hannah followed her inside, carrying scanning equipment. "The air is still good in here, Doctor. Old, but breathable. Should we remove our helmets?" "No, we don't know what biological agents might be present." They moved deeper into the ship. Jiwan's light caught strange details. Claw marks on the walls. Furniture bolted to the ceiling, built for a species that experienced gravity differently than humans. A drinking vessel still sitting on a desk. Whatever liquid it held long since evaporated to dust. "People died here," Hannah whispered. Double quotes. "Yes, they came to kill us and they died instead." The bridge was massive. Command stations formed a circle around a central platform. Screens still glowed with faint emergency lighting, powered by batteries that had somehow survived the centuries. At the center platform, a Vorath skeleton sat in what must have been the commander's chair. Its skull was elongated, built for a brain structure completely different from human anatomy. "This was Fleetmaster Krell," Taiyang said over the radio. He was watching from the ship. Records say he commanded the invasion fleet. Never surrendered. Went down with his ship. Jiwan approached the command station carefully. The controls were designed for hands with 6 fingers. The screen in front of the skeleton still showed text in Vorath script. She took pictures, her heart pounding. "Hannah, can you access their computer systems?" The young woman pulled out a portable interface. Human technology had advanced far beyond the Vorath level. Breaking their encryption would be trivial. She connected cables to several ports, her fingers dancing over her own screen. "I'm in," Hannah said after a few minutes. "Doctor, their logs are all here. Everything, battle recordings, tactical data, personal journals. It's all preserved?" Jiwan felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Everything?" They documented their entire invasion. "It's all here, from their perspective." Minho's voice crackled over the radio. "Are you saying we can see exactly what they saw? What they thought?" "Yes," Hannah confirmed. The Vorath were meticulous record keepers. They wanted to document their conquest of humanity for their historians. Instead, they documented their own extinction. Jiwan stared at the skeleton in the chair. Fleetmaster Krell had sat here, giving orders, watching his fleet die around him. What had he thought in those final moments? Had he understood what humanity truly was? Or had he died still believing humans were just another primitive species that got lucky? "Start downloading everything," Jiwan ordered. "I want complete copies of all logs, all recordings, all data. This is the most significant archaeological find in centuries." "This is more than archaeology," Taiyang said. "This is military intelligence. Those logs might contain information about human weapon systems that are still classified." The war was 500 years ago, Commander. "Some secrets don't age," Taiyang replied. "I need to report this to Earth Defense Force. They'll want to review everything before it's published." Giwan wanted to argue, but she understood. The weapons humanity had used to destroy this fleet were terrible. Most people today had no idea what their ancestors were capable of. Maybe that was better. Maybe some knowledge was too dangerous. "We'll copy everything to isolated storage," she said. "Nothing gets transmitted until it's been reviewed." They worked for hours downloading 5 centuries of preserved data. The Vorath computers gave up their secrets easily, unaware that they were betraying their creator's final moments. Giwan watched the progress bars fill on Hana's screen, each percentage point representing thousands of files. When they finally returned to their ship, Jiwan couldn't sleep. She sat in her quarters, staring at the preliminary data on her tablet. The Vorath had written everything in their own language, but translation software was making quick work of it. She opened a file at random. It was a personal log from Navigator Vess, dated 3 days before the invasion. The Vorath was excited, confident. He wrote about how this would be his 3rd conquest, how humanity would barely resist, how he looked forward to claiming souvenirs from Earth's primitive cities. G1 closed the file. Her hands were shaking. Tomorrow, she would begin the real work. Tomorrow, she would read the story of humanity's war from the eyes of those who thought they would win. Tomorrow, she would learn what the Vorath saw when they realized they had made a terrible mistake. But tonight, she sat in the darkness, surrounded by the silent graveyard, and thought about her great-grandmother. What had that woman seen during the war? What had she done? The metals on Jiwan's wall had never seemed heavier. Fleetmaster Krell stood in his command chamber, watching the holographic display of the target system. The 3rd planet orbited a yellow star, perfect for supporting life. His scanner technicians had confirmed large population centers, orbital structures, and electromagnetic signatures. Another civilization ready for incorporation into the Vorath Imperium. "This will be conquest number 48, War Scholar Noth said, making notes on his datapad. The scholar's job was to document each conquest for the Imperial archives. The humans should provide interesting subjects for study. Krell barely listened. He had commanded the previous 12 conquests personally. They all followed the same pattern. Arrive in overwhelming force. Demonstrate superior firepower. Accept surrender. Install Imperial governance. Move to the next system. The Vorath had perfected the process over 300 years. "What do we know about their military capability?" Krell asked. Navigator Vess brought up tactical data. "Primitive, Fleetmaster. They use chemical rockets for basic spaceflight. They have nuclear weapons, but only in the kiloton range. We detected approximately 300 orbital platforms and some asteroid mining operations. No evidence of faster-than-light travel." 300 platforms? Krell laughed. "We bring 10,000 warships. This will be over in hours." "If I may, Fleetmaster," Vess said carefully. The navigator was always cautious. "Their broadcasts are unusual. We've been monitoring their entertainment transmissions for 200 years. They show constant warfare, nuclear exchanges, planetary devastation. Yet our current scans show a peaceful civilization with no active conflicts." "They outgrew their violent phase," Noth suggested. "Many species do. They reached their limits, nearly destroyed themselves, then chose cooperation. It's common. Common and irrelevant, Krell said. Peaceful species are easier to conquer. Prepare the fleet for system entry. Standard invasion protocols. The Vorath fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel beyond the humans' outermost planet. 10,000 ships, each carrying weapons that had broken 47 civilizations. Krell felt the familiar satisfaction. This was what the Vorath were born to do: expand, conquer, rule. The humans are responding, Vess reported. They're launching ships from their orbital stations. How many? Approximately 300 vessels. They're smaller than our cruisers. Krell studied the display. The human ships were moving to intercept, forming a defensive line near the fourth planet. Brave, perhaps. Foolish, certainly. 300 ships against 10,000 was not a battle. It was a massacre. They're transmitting, the communications officer said. Another surrender demand. Ignore it, Krell ordered. We don't negotiate with species that haven't felt our power first. That's how they learn respect. The human fleet accelerated. Their ships moved fast, faster than Vorath sensors had predicted. Advanced engines, Krell noted. Interesting. Perhaps the humans had made some progress after all. It wouldn't matter. Fleet Master, the human vessels are entering weapons range, Vess said. Should we fire? Minimal force, Krell commanded. Disable their lead ships. Show them resistance is pointless. The first salvo from the Vorath fleet lit up the darkness. Plasma beams and particle cannons, enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. The energy weapons streaked toward the human formation. Nothing happened. The human ships didn't dodge. They didn't activate shields. The weapons simply stopped existing before impact, as if reality had deleted them from existence. What just happened? Krell demanded. Unknown, Fleet Master. Our weapons disappeared. Sensors show no energy dispersion, no reflection, no absorption. They just ceased to exist. Fire again. Full power. The second salvo was 10 times larger. Enough energy to crack a planet's crust. The result was identical. The weapons vanished before reaching the human ships. On the holographic display, the human fleet continued its approach. Untouched. Then the humans fired back. Krell would remember that moment for the rest of his short life. The human ships didn't launch visible projectiles. They didn't fire energy beams. Space itself seemed to twist around their vessels, reality bending in ways that made his eyes hurt. A human destroyer did something to the fabric of space-time. Krell didn't understand what. His sensors didn't understand what. 50 Vorath cruisers simply stopped existing. Not destroyed. Not vaporized. They ceased to be, as if they had never been there at all. Report! Krell shouted. Fleet Master, we've lost contact with Battle Group 7, all 50 ships. No debris, no survivors. They're just gone. That's impossible. Yes, Fleet Master. But it happened. More human ships opened fire. Each attack violated physics as Krell understood it. One weapon created a sphere where time moved backwards, aging Vorath ships into dust in seconds. Another opened holes into somewhere else, somewhere dark and cold that pulled ships inside and didn't let them return. They're not using energy weapons, War Scholar Noth said quietly. His datapad had fallen from his shaking hands. They're using reality itself as a weapon. They've weaponized the fundamental forces of existence. All ships evasive maneuvers, Krell ordered. Return fire with everything. The battle became chaos. The Vorath fleet outnumbered the humans 30-1, but numbers meant nothing. A Vorath battleship fired antimatter torpedoes at a human medical frigate. The small human vessel absorbed 300 direct hits without its shields even flickering. Then it fired back, and the battleship folded in on itself until it was the size of a marble. Navigator Vess was screaming into his communicator. Retreat. All ships retreat. Jump to faster than light. Negative, the jump coordinator replied. We can't. The humans have deployed some kind of field. It's preventing faster than light travel. We're trapped. Krell felt ice in his veins. Trapped, the humans had sealed the entire system. There would be no escape, no retreat, no mercy. How? He whispered. How did a primitive species develop this? War Scholar Noth was laughing, a broken sound. They're not primitive, Fleet Master. We are. We thought they were like us, like the other 47 species. We were wrong. So terribly wrong. A human vessel appeared directly in front of Krell's flagship, having apparently teleported across 1,000,000 kilometers of space. It was small, barely the size of a Vorath corvette. On his screen, Krell saw text appear in perfect Vorath script. You were offered peace 17 times. You chose this. Now face the consequences. They speak our language, Vess said numbly. They've been able to communicate all along. They wanted to talk. We refused. The small human ship didn't fire. It simply existed near Krell's flagship, and that was enough. The flagship's hull began to scream as molecular bonds forgot how to hold together. Emergency systems failed. Life support collapsed. Krell felt his ship dying around him. Send a message, he gasped. To all surviving Vorath ships. To our homeworld. Tell them what we found here. Tell them never to come to this system. Tell them humanity is not prey. They are predators who chose to stop hunting. Navigator Vess recorded the message with shaking hands. Around them, the Vorath fleet was being systematically destroyed. Not in rage. Not in fury. The humans fought with cold efficiency, like surgeons removing a cancer. Each strike was precise. Each death was calculated. They're playing with us? Noth said. They could have destroyed us instantly. They're making it last. Making sure we understand. Understand what? That we never stood a chance. That every choice we made was wrong. That we came to conquer gods and mistook them for children. Krell's screens were failing. Through the dying displays, he saw the human fleet moving through his forces, like a blade through water, beautiful, terrible, unstoppable. His last thought was simple: humanity had been peaceful not because they were weak. They were peaceful because they had evolved beyond the need for conquest. The Vorath had forced them to remember what they used to be. What they chose not to be anymore, the humans had given them. Every chance to turn back, the Vorath had refused everyone. Now they would become a lesson. A warning. A graveyard orbiting the moon of a species that had learned to wage war against reality itself, then decided to build gardens instead. Dr. Jiwan sat in the research vessel's main lab, surrounded by holographic displays. For 3 days, she had been reading through the Vorath logs. The story they told was both horrifying and fascinating. Now she was ready to share her findings with the team. Minho, Hana, Commander Taiyang, and Daeyun, their tactical AI specialist, gathered around the central table. Yuan took a deep breath and began. The battle lasted exactly 17 hours and 12 minutes, she said. The Vorath documented everything. We now have a complete timeline of their defeat, from their perspective. She activated the first display. It showed the Vorath fleet positions at the start of the engagement. The first 3 hours were about confusion, Jawan continued. The Vorath couldn't understand why their weapons weren't working. They tried everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, antimatter missiles. Nothing reached our ships. The weapons simply stopped existing. Our defensive systems operated on principles they couldn't detect, Daeyun explained. While the Vorath were using energy weapons, we had moved beyond that. We manipulated probability fields. Made it so their weapons had zero chance of hitting us. Not blocking them. Just making them not happen. Hannah looked troubled. That's not just advanced technology. That's like magic. Any sufficiently advanced technology looks like magic, Minho said. But yes, the gap between us and the Vorath was huge. Bigger than the gap between humans and Stone Age civilizations. Jiwan brought up the next section of data. Hours 4 through 8 were about the Vorath attempting to retreat. That's when they discovered they were trapped. The display showed human ships deploying what the Vorath logs called coherence nets. These devices prevented faster-than-light travel throughout the entire solar system. The Vorath fleet was sealed inside with an enemy they couldn't fight. "I found something interesting in Fleet Master Krell's personal logs," Jawan said. He realized in Hour 5 that humanity had been capable of this level of warfare for a long time. He found references in our public broadcast to something called the Unification Wars, fought 200 years before the Vorath invasion. "The Unification Wars," Commander Taiyang said quietly. "When humanity almost destroyed itself. When we developed weapons so terrible that we chose to never use them again. That's when we decided to become a peaceful species. The Vorath saw our history of violence and thought we were primitive," Minho added. "They never understood that we were post-violent. We had moved beyond war because we had perfected it and hated what we saw." G1 switched to the battle recordings from hours 9 through 12. These were harder to watch. The Vorath had tried biological weapons, hoping to bypass humanity's technological defenses. They released engineered viruses toward Earth. The human response was immediate. A medical frigate, designed for healing, intercepted the biological attack. It didn't destroy the viruses. It edited them, changed their genetic code in mid-flight, transforming weapons into harmless proteins that dissolved in Earth's atmosphere. "They used a hospital ship to defeat a biological attack," Hannah whispered. "They literally healed the weapons." "Then there were the antimatter bombs," Jiwan said. "The Vorath dropped 80 antimatter warheads. Enough explosive power to vaporize a continent. Watch what happened." The hologram showed a human civilian transport, not even a military vessel, create a bubble of altered physics around the bombs. Inside the bubble, matter and antimatter didn't react. The bombs passed through without exploding. The transport then compressed the bubble to the size of a marble and launched it into the sun. "A civilian ship," Daeyun emphasized. "Not military. We had given reality manipulation technology to our cargo haulers. For them, it was just normal equipment. For the Vorath, it was incomprehensible." The final section of data covered hours 13 through 17. This was the systematic destruction of the Vorath fleet. G1 displayed Admiral Sora's tactical logs alongside the Vorath records. "Admiral Sora offered surrender terms in Hour 13, G1 said. "Unconditional and permanent. The Vorath would be allowed to survive if they left and never returned." Fleet Master Krell refused. The Vorath commander's response was in the logs. He had called humanity's offer an insult. The Vorath Imperium did not surrender. They did not retreat. They would fight until victory or death. "Sora gave them 1 hour to reconsider," Minho said, reading from the human archives. When the Vorath refused again, she ordered the final assault. What followed was not a battle. It was an execution. The human fleet divided into small groups, each targeting specific Vorath vessels. They didn't waste energy. Each attack was calculated for maximum efficiency. G1 showed a recording from a Vorath cruiser. A human destroyer approached it, appearing and disappearing as it moved through folded space. The human ship didn't fire conventional weapons. It simply made the Vorath cruiser's atoms forget how to stay together. The ship dissolved like sugar in water. "They didn't hate the Vorath," Daeyun observed. "There's no anger in these tactics. It's cold, professional, like removing a threat, not fighting an enemy." "Because we didn't want to fight," Commander Taiyang said. "We wanted to live in peace. The Vorath forced us to become what we used to be, what we had sworn never to be again." The final log entry from Navigator Vess appeared on the screen. Yuan read it aloud. "We came to conquer primitives. We found gods who chose to build rather than destroy. We forced them to remember they were something else first. In our arrogance, we thought their peace was weakness. Now we die, and our death will teach what our life never learned. Beware the peaceful species. Beware the ones who choose not to fight. When you force them to fight, you may discover why they chose peace." The room was silent. Outside the viewport, the debris field drifted past. Thousands of ships. Hundreds of thousands of Vorath. All dead because they had mistaken humanity's choice for inability. There's something else, Jiwan said. Something I found in the deepest sections of the Vorath database. She brought up a new file. It was marked with human encryption codes. Admiral Sora placed this in the Vorath flagship's computers before the ship went dark. It's a message, addressed to whoever would eventually study these ruins. She knew, Hannah said. 500 years ago, she knew we would come here. That we would find all this? Jiwan opened the file. Admiral Sora's face appeared in the hologram, 5 centuries younger than her recorded death. She looked tired, sad, but her eyes were hard. To whoever studies these ruins, Sora's recording began. Know this. We detected the Vorath fleet months before they attacked. We tried to contact them 17 times. We offered peace, trade, and friendship. They ignored every message. They thought our silence was fear. The recording paused. Sora seemed to be looking directly at Jiwan across 500 years. We didn't want this war. We had put away our weapons. We had chosen to become builders, explorers, and artists. The Vorath reminded us what we could be when threatened. What we have been during the Unification Wars, what we swore never to be again. Another pause. This graveyard is not a monument to our power. It's a monument to their mistake. We gave peace every chance. When they chose war, we gave them certainty. Let this teach what our poetry could not. Humanity treasures peace because we perfected war. We know what we're capable of. That's exactly why we choose otherwise. The recording ended. Jiwan turned off the display. So now we know, she said. The complete story. From both sides. What do we do with this information? Minho asked. That, Jiwan replied, is what we need to decide. 3 weeks after discovering Admiral Sora's message, Hannah found something that changed everything. She rushed into the main lab where Jiwan was reviewing translation files. Doctor, you need to see this, Hannah said breathlessly. I found the Vorath Intelligence Center. It was buried deep in the flagship, protected by multiple hull layers. That's why it survived intact. Jiwan followed her student to the excavation site. They had cut through several sections of the dead ship, each layer revealing more of the Vorath's final moments. The Intelligence Center was a large room filled with data storage units, all still powered by the ship's seemingly immortal batteries. What did you find? Jiwan asked. Hannah brought up files on her portable terminal. Complete records on all 47 species the Vorath conquered before us. Every invasion is documented. Battle plans, resistance levels, casualty figures, integration timelines. It's all here. Jiwan scanned through the files. Each conquest followed an identical pattern. The Vorath would arrive with overwhelming force. The target species would fight briefly, realize they were outmatched, and surrender. Most wars lasted less than a week. The longest was 30 days. They were efficient, Jiwan said. Brutal but efficient. That's not the important part, Hannah said. Look at this. Their assessment files on humanity. She pulled up a thick document. It was dated 10 years before the invasion. The Vorath had been studying Earth for 2 centuries, compiling intelligence for their eventual attack. Jiwan read through the assessment. Her hands began to shake. The Vorath analysis was completely wrong. They had observed Earth's nuclear weapons and concluded humanity was at an early industrial warfare stage. They had intercepted broadcasts of human conflicts and assumed humanity was violent and divided. They had seen our entertainment programs, our movies about war and destruction, and thought we were a young species still learning to control our aggressive impulses. They didn't understand, Jiwan whispered. They saw our history and thought it was our present. Keep reading, Hannah urged. The assessment continued. The Vorath had detected Earth's orbital stations and asteroid mining operations. They had noted our lack of military vessels in deep space. Their analysts concluded that humanity had basic space travel but no real defensive capabilities. They expected token resistance, followed by quick surrender. What the Vorath never discovered was the truth. Humanity had achieved post-scarcity technology 150 years before the invasion. We had developed quantum computing, reality manipulation, and faster-than-light travel. We had fought terrible wars with these technologies, wars that nearly destroyed Earth. Then we had chosen to stop. The unification wars had ended with a simple agreement. Humanity would dismantle most military technology. We would focus on art, science, exploration, and building a better society. We kept defensive systems enough to protect against natural disasters and theoretical threats, but we put away the weapons that could break reality. Our entertainment broadcasts, Jawan said. The violence the Vorath saw. It was historical fiction. Warnings to ourselves about what we used to be. They thought we were primitive and violent, Hana said. We were actually post-violent. We had moved beyond war. Minho arrived with Suho, the ethics officer who had been assigned to their expedition. Suho was a thoughtful man in his 50s, responsible for ensuring the team's discoveries were handled appropriately. Hana sent me the files, Minho said. This changes our understanding of the entire war. Suho studied the Vorath assessment in silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was troubled. The Vorath attacked the wrong version of humanity. They prepared to fight a primitive species. They encountered something that had evolved beyond their comprehension. We weren't primitive, Jawan said. We were reformed. We had already been through our violent phase and chosen peace. The Vorath forced us to become what we used to be. There's more, Hana said quietly. She pulled up another file. Buried in the Vorath database. Another message from Admiral Sora. This one is different. The hologram activated. Admiral Sora appeared again, but this recording was clearly made after the battle. She looked older, more tired. Behind her, through a viewport, the debris field was already forming. If you found my first message, you know why we fought, Sora said. This message explains why we fought the way we did. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The Vorath thought they were fighting a primitive species. They were wrong. But we needed them to understand how wrong they were. We needed to send a message that would echo across the galaxy. What is she saying? Suho asked. Sora's recording continued. We could have destroyed the Vorath fleet instantly. Our weapons could have erased them in seconds. But we chose to make it last 17 hours. We chose to let them see what we could do. We chose to let them document everything. Yuan felt cold. She wanted survivors. She wanted witnesses. We let 3 Vorath ships escape, Sora confirmed in the recording. We made sure they saw everything. We made sure they would carry the story back to their empire. We wanted the galaxy to know what happened when someone attacked Earth. The recording shifted. Sora looked directly into the camera. This was not cruelty. This was communication. The Vorath ignored 17 peaceful messages. They only understood violence. So we spoke their language and we made sure they would never forget the conversation. The 3 ships that escaped, Minho said. They would have told the Vorath Empire what happened. That's why no one has attacked Earth in 500 years. It's more than that, Suho said. Look at the galactic records. After the Vorath defeat, their entire empire collapsed. Other species that had been conquered rose up. The Vorath never recovered. Within a century, they were extinct. Hana pulled up historical data. Suho was right. The Vorath Imperium had fallen apart after losing their fleet. The species that survived had scattered, tried to rebuild, but the knowledge of their defeat had broken something fundamental. They had thought themselves invincible. Earth had proven them wrong. They never accepted it. We didn't just defeat them, Jiwan said. We destroyed their entire civilization's confidence. Was that necessary? Suho asked quietly. We could have just defended ourselves. Why destroy their entire society? The final section of Sora's message played. She seemed to have anticipated the question. Some will ask if we went too far, if we could have shown more mercy. Here is my answer. The Vorath had conquered 47 species. They had enslaved billions. They would have enslaved us. When we defeated them, we freed everyone they had oppressed. Sora leaned forward. We didn't destroy the Vorath civilization. We revealed it was already hollow. An empire built on fear and violence. When they met someone they couldn't conquer, the whole structure collapsed. That's not our fault. That's theirs. The recording ended. The team sat in silence, processing what they had learned. Outside, the graveyard drifted past. 10,000 ships. The remains of an empire that had mistaken humanity's peace for weakness. The question remains, Suho said finally. What do we do with this information? The galaxy knows Earth defeated the Vorath, but they don't know how easily. They don't know about our capabilities. They don't know we deliberately let ships escape to spread fear. That's the real question, Jawan agreed. Do we publish everything? Or do we keep humanity's secrets? If we publish, other species will fear us, Minho said. If we don't, they'll wonder what we're hiding. Hannah countered. Jiwan looked at Admiral Sora's frozen image on the screen. The woman had faced this same question 500 years ago. She had chosen transparency with violence. She had made sure everyone knew what Earth could do, but was that the right choice for today? We need to decide, Jiwan said. Because this discovery will change everything. 3 months after the initial discovery, Jawan stood before the Interstellar Academic Council. Representatives from 12 different species filled the chamber. This was the moment that would define how the galaxy understood humanity's past and future. The debate within Earth's government had been fierce. Commander Taiyang had argued for keeping everything classified. The weapon systems humanity had used were still active, still secret. Publishing their details could destabilize galactic peace. Minho had argued for complete transparency. Secrets created suspicion. Fear grew in darkness. The truth, no matter how uncomfortable, was better than mystery. In the end, Jiwan had made the decision herself. She was the lead archaeologist. The data was hers to present. She chose truth. Now she activated the main display. The chamber's lights dimmed. Holographic images of the Vorath fleet appeared, surrounded by data and recordings. For 500 years, the galaxy has known that Earth defeated the Vorath Imperium, Jiwan began. Today, I will show you exactly how and why. She presented everything. The Vorath logs, the battle recordings, Admiral Sora's messages, the complete timeline of the 17-hour war. She showed the galaxy what humanity was capable of when threatened. The reaction was immediate. Several species representatives stood to leave. Others argued among themselves. Heijin, representing the peaceful Tethian collective, remained seated, her expression thoughtful. When the presentation ended, silence filled the chamber. Finally, Ambassador Wujin stood. He was Earth's diplomatic envoy, a calm man in his 60s who had spent decades building relationships with other species. I understand your concern, Wujin said to the assembly. You have just learned that humanity possesses weapons beyond your understanding. Weapons we have kept secret for 5 centuries. You wonder if you can trust us. You wonder if we might use those weapons again. He paused, letting the words settle. But you have missed the point of what Dr. Jiwan showed you. Yes, we have these capabilities. But for 500 years, we have not used them. We returned to peace the moment the threat ended. We did not pursue the Vorath homeworld. We did not become conquerors ourselves. A representative from the Keshan League spoke up. But you deliberately let Vorath ships escape. You wanted to spread fear across the galaxy. Admiral Sora wanted to prevent future wars, Wujin replied. And it worked. No one has attacked Earth in 500 years. No one has attacked our allies. How many lives were saved because potential aggressors knew the cost? Heijin rose to speak. The Tethian was tall and graceful, her skin shimmering with patterns that indicated deep thought. I have studied Earth's culture for 20 years, she said. I have always wondered why humanity maintains such minimal defenses. Your orbital stations are small. Your military fleet is tiny compared to your economic power. Now I understand. You are not afraid of us. You are afraid of yourselves. The chamber erupted in debate. Jiwan watched it all, feeling exhausted. She had spent 3 months preparing for this moment. Now the truth was public. There was no taking it back. Hours of discussion. The council called for a recess. Ji-won retreated to a private room where her team waited. Minho, Hana, Commander Taeyang, Suho, and Daeyeon all looked as tired as she felt. That went well, Hana said sarcastically. Actually, it did, Taeyang said. No one walked out permanently. They're talking? That's good. They're terrified, Suho observed. Fear is honest, Minho said. It's better than the polite uncertainty we had before. Over the following weeks, the galactic response evolved. Initial fear gave way to analysis. Other species began reviewing their own assessments of humanity. Many realized they had made the same mistake as the Vorath. They had assumed Earth's peaceful nature indicated weakness. The academic community exploded with papers and debates. Xenopsychologists studied humanity's choice to abandon advanced weapons. Military strategists analyzed the 17-hour war, trying to understand tactics that operated outside known physics. Philosophers discussed what it meant to choose peace when you had perfected war. Haijin published a paper that became famous across multiple worlds. She called it The Paradox of Earthborn Power. Her thesis was simple but profound. Every species wondered if their neighbors would destroy them given the chance. Now they knew humanity could destroy anyone but had spent 500 years proving they would not. This is the difference between power and threat, Haijin wrote. Power is capability. Threat is intent. Humanity has ultimate power but minimal threat. This makes them the most trustworthy species in the galaxy because we know they could dominate us and have chosen not to. The paper changed the conversation. Fear became respect. Suspicion became trust. Species that had kept Earth at a diplomatic distance began reaching out. Trade agreements multiplied. Cultural exchanges increased. Scientific cooperation deepened. 6 months after the initial presentation, Ji-won returned to the debris field. She floated in her pressure suit among the silent wreckage. Thinking about everything that had happened, Hana's voice crackled over the radio. Doctor, the final cataloging is complete. We've documented every major section of the Vorath flagship. The data will be preserved in the galactic archives. Good, Ji-won replied. Future generations should know what happened here. She approached the Vorath flagship one last time. The hole they had cut to enter was still there, a dark opening into history. Inside that ship, Fleetmaster Krell had died believing his species was invincible. He had learned the truth too late. Commander Taeyang joined her, his old suit moving carefully through zero gravity. I spoke with Earth Defense Force, he said. They've decided to declassify some of our defensive systems. Not the weapons, just the shields and containment fields. Enough to help other species defend themselves. Really? Your presentation convinced them. If we want to be trusted, we need to show we're willing to share. Not weapons, but protection. It's a good compromise. Ji-won thought about that. Humanity sharing its defensive technology. Helping other species protect themselves without giving them the means to attack. It was very human. Give people the tools to survive, not the tools to destroy. What will happen to this place? She asked. The graveyard? It will become a memorial, Taeyang said. The council voted unanimously. This will be preserved as a historical site. A reminder. Of what? Of the cost of assumptions. Of the danger of mistaking peace for weakness. Of the importance of communication. He paused. And of humanity's choice. We could have kept fighting. Could have become conquerors. We chose to come home instead. They floated together in silence, surrounded by the ruins of an empire that had made the worst possible mistake. Later, back on the research vessel, Ji-won made her final entry in the project log. She thought carefully about her words, knowing they would be read by humans and aliens alike for centuries to come. We study their ruins not to celebrate victory, but to remember the cost of being misunderstood. The Vorath saw our history of violence and assumed it was our nature. They never imagined a species could choose to evolve beyond its worst instincts. This graveyard orbits Earth as a monument, not to our power, but to our restraint. 10,000 ships came to conquer us. We could have pursued their homeworld, could have become conquerors ourselves. Instead, we sealed our solar system, returned to our lives, and waited to see who we would become. 500 years later, we are artists, explorers, teachers, and friends to dozens of species. We build rather than destroy. We study these ruins so we never forget that peace is not weakness and power is meaningful only in how we choose not to use it. The final fleet that challenged Earth became our greatest teachers. Their ruins ask every visitor the same question: what would you do with ultimate power? Would you conquer or would you create? Humanity answered that question long ago. These ruins are our proof. Jiwan saved the file and closed her terminal. Through the viewport, Earth hung in the distance, blue and green and beautiful. A peaceful planet that had once been something else. A world that remembered what it could do and chose otherwise. She thought about Admiral Sora, dead for 4 centuries but still teaching through her messages. The old admiral had fought a terrible war so that future generations would not have to. She had made sure the galaxy understood humanity's capabilities, not as a threat, but as a promise. We can destroy you. We choose not to. That choice makes us who we are. Outside, the graveyard drifted in eternal orbit. 10,000 ships. 1,000,000 stories. One lesson. Peace is not the absence of power. Peace is power under control. Peace is the choice that matters most when you have every other option available. Humanity had learned that lesson the hard way. Now, through these ruins, the galaxy could learn it the easy way. Jiwan smiled and turned away from the window. There was still work to do. More species to meet. More understanding to build. More peace to create. The Vorath had tried to write a story of conquest. Instead, they had written humanity's greatest testimonial. Sometimes, Jiwan thought, the best lessons come from the worst mistakes. And the best teachers are the ones who learn from those who failed.